this could be interesting. Female Japanese rock and metal. The psychology behind the fandom. Nemophila, Band-Maid reaction here. Psychology of rock. Let's go and put this on the screen and see what they say here. What this lady says.
Hey fellow music fans, welcome back to Psychology of Rock. If you're new here, my name's Nina, and it's been a while since I made a video.
Not the first time reacting to one of her videos. I think I reacted to something related to the warning.
About any of the female rock and metal bands coming out of Japan, but that does not mean that I haven't been following them. And over the past year or so, many of you have asked in the comments if I would offer my thoughts on their rising popularity and what the reason might be that, at least here in the West, such a huge percentage of the fan base seems to be male.
Yeah.
Now, as a female fan,
I mean, that's going to happen. Okay, I can think of a couple of reasons why it happens. I could think of some reasons now. All right, but they're not bad reasons. There's some good reasons. There's some reasons where it's like, I'm curious where she goes with this though.
I have to say that obviously there's not just one type of
easy answer. Simps. That is the easy go-to. That's what some would say there. Be like, oh, they're all simps. That's not all true though. Not everyone simps for them. Obviously, the ladies are attractive, right? That is true. As part of it, part of the package. That's what's going to be mentioned here, I'm sure. But I don't see how that's a bad thing at all. In fact, if anything, there's chicks, there are just bands that cater towards chicks because they look hot. They have guys that look hot, and you know that. There's ladies who like particular, like Maroon 5 or whatever, and they're like all dreamy over the guy or whatever. And it's like, okay. So I don't have a problem with that at all.
Person or gender that gets hooked on these bands, but clearly I have to agree that there does seem to be a male-dominated audience. Now, according to concert reports from Japan, the audience...
I mean, the metal crowd, the metal fans, the rock fans, it's mostly male-dominated anyway.
Is for Band-Maid concerts, which is really the only demographic stats that I could find that apply here, are composed of about 85 to 90% male fans between their 20s and 60s, with the majority of these attendants being on the older end of the spectrum. Now, I'm sure this fluctuates somewhat, and I'm also not sure how accurate this data is, but I have to say these figures do mirror the engagement I've seen online and at shows here in the US.
Yeah, just pull up any live show of Lovebites, Baby Metal, Band-Maid, and it's going to be mostly dudes. And is that a problem? I don't see that as a problem. It just is what it is. First off, the rock scene, the metal scene, as far as fans go, is going to be mostly dudes, especially metal, mostly dudes. They love to pan the camera to the only woman in the crowd, though.
And while these statistics are for Band-Maid exclusively, I think it's fairly safe to assume that the fan base for many of the other bands in this genre would likely not be too different. Although it is interesting because, according to a recent study by the Pew Research Center, women are just as likely as men to be fans of rock music.
What? Based on the Pew Research study, women are just as likely as men to be fans of rock music. However, if you see, like, what bands are we talking about? What are we talking about? Nickelback? Maroon 5? I mean, what are we talking about? That doesn't make any sense. I guess it depends on factors there, but I like what she said, rock music. So not all right. Man, we got to take a. I don't know how they gathered that data. That doesn't sound right. That sounds like bullshit.
So given all of these factors, I think the demographics of the fan base as well as the reasons for their dedication really are fascinating topics to explore. And of course, I'm going to offer my thoughts and theories on this, but I would also love it if you would share your thoughts, especially if you have been a member.
The bands are good and they're hot. It works together. Lovebites, very talented, and they're also hot. Hey, two great things I like to see. And here
the fan base for a while, because I think it would just add another layer to the conversation. And I might be biased, but I also think that this channel has an incredibly insightful and intelligent comment section, and I just love reading through your thoughts. So all of that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, to really examine this, I think we need to start by exploring the possible reasons why female rock and metal that is specifically coming out of Japan is so popular in general.
So far, she's being. So far, I like the presentation of this. It sounds like it's going to be fair, and it's going to be like, balanced there. Okay, fair and balanced. Okay, it's not going to be like what's that Punk NBA, that guy, what he did, which pretty much look at all the Japanese female stuff and be like, it's just simps. They don't like it because they fetishize them because they want to bang him or whatever. It's like, okay, guy, okay, all right, nah. They have talent too, like they're really good. Okay, all right, and we recognize that. Oh my God.
General, and I think the first thing has to do with availability. Japan unquestionably has a strong rock and metal scene with a long history of fantastic female bands, many of which have been able to achieve at least a moderate degree of commercial success. Here in the West, there are of course some phenomenal female artists, but the rock scene itself does not seem to have the same level of...
Yeah, I don't know many female rock bands coming from the West, other than I guess The Warning technically, but...
saturation.
Barrack Heart. No, but it wasn't all female.
With female bands. Now, growing up, I would literally see bands every single weekend and almost...
Could y'all list the all-female bands? Like, oh man. From the States. From America. All-female rock bands. There's Kitty. Right? They're all female. Are they American? Someone can tell me that they're actually Canadian. I don't know, man.
All of them were male, like 95% of them. Seeing even a singular female member was rare, let alone a whole band. I was able to see a lot of bands that I really admired, like Babes in Toyland and L7, which were smaller bands, but that's what we had at the time, and it was just a really big deal to be able to see an all-female band back then. Now, thankfully, there's definitely been a rise in all-female bands in the West now, with many being absolutely incredible, like The Warning and Plush. But Japan still seems miles ahead as far as accessibility goes. So if you tend to be a fan of all-female rock or metal,
Man, they just look great. Of course, they look fantastic, and they sound great, man. This is audience, man. By the way, I still have 2 live albums I need to review. What's a Plush? That's cute.
Just more bands to discover that are coming out of Japan. So that is one thing, but I definitely don't think that is the only thing. Now, it was fairly recently that I found any of these bands, and I can't thank this channel enough for pushing me down the rabbit hole, because now I can't get enough. It was after I made one of my first videos, which was about The Warning, that probably 100 people at least told me that I had to check out Band-Maid. So that was my first exposure to the genre, and I was speechless when I first...
I bet she was. I mean, Band-Maid is pretty good.
Heard them, and what hit me right away was the musicianship. The pure technical skill is just mind-blowing, and not just with Band-Maid, it's all of them that I've heard. Now, I play guitar, so that's always the first thing that I notice, and these ladies can definitely shred. But
yeah, 100%. I agree there. I don't know who would disagree with that. I mean, Japan is producing like really talented female guitarists. I don't know if there's something in the water or what, but
They are masters across the board. Bass, drums, vocals, they are all on another level. And together is like pure musical magic. So
Crystal Lake and One OK Rock are far more popular. Well, that is true, but there is I would say there definitely is a growing increase with a female Japanese rock and metal.
I don't think I'm the only one that is completely impressed by this type of technical skill. I think a lot of fans of rock and metal in general really appreciate and seek out this level of musicianship. I think a lot of the popularity of many of the subgenres of rock and metal, like progressive rock and thrash metal, has a lot to do with the emphasis on technical proficiency. And this is an area where many of the Japanese artists really shine. Two of my favorite bands right now are Nemophila and Lovebites, and this is definitely a huge part of the appeal for me. But there hasn't been a band that I've heard yet in this genre that I didn't find to be unbelievably impressive from a musicianship point of view. They're also really creative and write incredibly well-structured compositions, and many of these bands are not afraid to experiment with different styles and genres, which also adds a layer of novelty to their music. They are simply phenomenal songwriters. And for me, the fact that they are female and have this level of ability in both playing and composing is something that I absolutely...
Now, sometimes there are like producers behind the scenes that help out. That is true. Like Love Bites. It just gotta be fair. Gotta put that in there. There are some other people involved, but it is true that they do have good musicianship and very creative. They tend to do things that are very different. I'm gonna mispronounce it. Hanabiye. Oh man, I did that video of like how to say it, ready to go, because that's a word. If I don't say it often, like I'm gonna mispronounce it like the next time. What I was gonna say here, like a band like that is very different. Like you're not gonna get that sound anywhere else. Or let's say like a band like Gottschrick Spin. I can't think of a band from the West that sounds anything like them. They're very unique. So anyway.
We love. Now, obviously, musical ability transcends gender, and I think that people, at least for the most part, appreciate great music regardless of who creates it. But given the fact that rock and metal have been so dominated by male artists for
Speaking of Gottschrick Spin,
years and years, it just feels really empowering to see these women absolutely crushing it on stage.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this is something that the male audience really appreciates as well.
Yeah.
In fact, I feel like their male fan base is incredibly supportive and have really helped to create a positive
I would say so as well.
and inclusive atmosphere. I think they love the fact that these artists are women, which is really refreshing because their talent really does speak for itself. I also think that music coming from a female perspective is something that not only has been largely missing, but also adds something unique that expands the genre's emotional range. Rock and
most toxic. I haven't experienced any toxicity with like Love Bites or Band-Maid or any of that. Band-Maid toxic? How's Band-Maid toxic? I'm not sure about that one. I have to hard disagree there. If you mean like if you say anything critical about Band-Maid, they'll like come at you. Well, they just need to get over it. Okay, all right. I've done that a couple of times, but they just need to get over it.
metal have traditionally explored themes of anger, rebellion, and social commentary.
I'll be a baby metal fan and a Band-Maid thread. Well, they just need to get over it. I mean, they're not gonna.
And these Japanese female artists are bringing new voices and perspectives to these themes. And on top of that,
but aren't you going to get that with? Is it as bad as like, let's say like the thrash metal scene back in the day, when it was like you had to be thrash or you're a poser? You can only like certain bands. I don't think it's that hardcore. It's not that hardcore. You aren't getting beaten up, it's just being called like, I guess you can find some people like on Reddit or like on Twitter or X or whatever who be like negative, be like, oh, Band-Maid sucks or band metal fans suck or whatever. But you just ignore those haters, you know. You learn to kind of go towards the positive and kind of focus on that.
I think they're also injecting them with personal experiences that resonate in a way that wasn't as prominent before. And being a lyric person, I really like what a lot of these bands have to say, whether they sing in English or Japanese. I always look up the lyrics to see what they are singing about, and I find a lot of the themes really relatable. I think it adds another layer to their
We love sweets. That's relatable.
appeal, and I love...
Oh, the Yui Bros? Well, the Yui Bros need to get over that, okay? Like, for real, it's done. She ain't coming back, ever.
That a lot of their viewpoints challenge stereotypes and help create a more nuanced picture of what it means to be strong and powerful. And again, the lyrics do obviously seem to be really appealing.
Oh, can anyone name that band? It should do a name the band. Name the band.
To a male audience as well, and many men in the comment section of this channel have specifically told me how impressed they are with what these bands have to say. Now, I don't think we can overlook the next factor, although
you were wished death upon? I'm sorry, bro. Man, I was wished death upon many times. I got a story. It's not related to any of this stuff. I'll let this play.
I am curious to hear how much you all think it plays into their actual appeal, but I do feel like many bands have an overall
All right.
aesthetic that can be visually captivating. I think Band-Maid is a great example of this, but certainly not the only one, and I don't think it undermines their talent in any way to point out that most of these artists are extremely...
Oh, that's a recent photo of Asami.
Beautiful or cute or have a strong visual.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's kind of selling the music as well. The aesthetics are intended on purpose by design, obviously. You're not going to follow a band if it's a bunch of uglies. It's just not going to happen. All right? It's not happening. It's not happening.
Impact.
It's the same reason why they ain't gonna produce a boy band like NSYNC or Backstreet Boys with a bunch of like 300-pound dudes. Okay, it's just not happening. Okay, it's just not happening.
In some way. I don't think any of these bands rely on this, but I also think that it does, at least for some fans, even further their appeal. And I don't think this is limited to the male audience. Visual appeal and image have been a huge part of the music industry from...
My wife thought they were hot too. My wife was like, yes, this is good. This is good. They look great. I'm talking about Love Bites. She watched the Knocking on Heaven's Gate. And yeah, she was like, this is good stuff. I was all right, cool. Look at that.
The beginning, which I know is something that a lot of people feel strongly about on one side of the issue or another.
Yeah,
but many people really do enjoy not only the look of some of these performers, but also the contrasting image of femininity being paired with aggressive music. I think it's something that's both intriguing and unexpected, and it just makes all of it even more fun. If these ladies weren't insanely talented, it would be a different story. But the fact is that they are incredibly skilled and they deserve their popularity. So I have no issue at all with some of these bands making their image a part of the experience, especially because this is common practice in the...
She's great. I don't know, Psychology of Rock host, or Nina? Yes. I mean, she could have gone the ultra feminist route. Would have been like, oh, they only like them because of their looks. The men are a bunch of like creeps. They could have done that. She could have went there. The punk NBA guy did, who's a loser in my opinion. Okay. But she didn't. She didn't. She actually was fair and reasonable here. Okay. I mean, are there creeps? I mean, do you have to? I mean, obviously, there's creeps everywhere. There's creeps even baby metal fandom. Okay, there's creeps who really, really fixate on like the younger stuff, and that's all they do. That's creepy, bro. That's real creepy.
entertainment industry anyway, even when it's not intentional. I also think another huge factor is their stage presence and charisma. Beyond their musical talent, these bands across the board are truly captivating performers. They absolutely own the stage and their energy is through the roof. These bands are extraordinary live, and in many cases, their live shows sound even better than these studio recordings. And if we're talking about
100%, yeah.
About why a lot of older fans are drawn to these bands, I think nostalgia plays a role because they grew up going to live shows and seeing these amazing bands play.
Especially like with Lovebites. Oh, yes. It is like older dudes. Older dudes who grew up on like that music, like Iron Maiden and shit like that.
And there was kind of a gap for a while. Being able to see this type of incredible live show again is just the best feeling, and these ladies definitely deliver. I think what also sets these bands apart is the mood of the shows. You look around and everyone is just smiling. It's heavy music, but it also makes you feel happy. And this is purely because of the performers and their personalities. There is something unique 100%. That their feminine energy brings to the performance.
They're not all angry. You know, like a lot of bands in the West, especially metal bands, you all have to look angry. It's serious all the time. Like you're constipated all the time. You're mad. It's like tax day every day. That's how you have to look. You just have to file your taxes. Shit. Fuck.
And they do seem to be a lot more positive than a lot of the male bands, which is something that I think we all appreciate. One other thing that I think is leading to such a dedicated fandom is the strong social media presence that many of these bands have that allow fans to connect with them on a more personal level. We're able to see new photos, videos, and updates on almost a daily basis. There's also a lot of groups and communities for people to share their passion for these bands. So I think that only intensifies the dedication of fans because they're able to connect with so many other people that are equally dedicated. I also think that these bands clearly adore their fans and really value their dedication. This is something that we definitely don't always see in the music industry, but I really do think there is a true reciprocal relationship going on there. And honestly,
now that part I'm kind of curious on how true that is. If it's real, really genuine, or if it's like someone behind the scenes kind of pushing them to be that way. You know? I kind of wonder. There's some things I see, especially like with Lovebites, where it seems like a genuine decision to do it. Like Asami sharing pictures of her food and all sorts of stuff. Like they take you along with them. Like take pictures, you know, and all this stuff. Band-Maid does stuff like that too, where they kind of involve you in things, kind of take pictures of things and share with you. It's kind of cool. It's really cool. I think people like that sort of thing. Obviously, you know.
These artists are just extreme.
Oh, and Nemophila will share images of even if they're kids. Oh, now that's when I see like. Now they could do whatever they want. They're kids, but like whenever they post that stuff on social media, I'm like, ooh man, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I'll tell you this right now. Repo, you said you had death wished upon you. Years ago, I used to do a horror publishing thing. It was like I would publish anthologies, which are a book with a collection of stories in it, horror related. And doing that, I rejected stuff, and I guess I pissed off someone, and he found an image of my kid, of my little kid, and drew dicks all over it, and then found all sorts of other images and did things and sent it to me, and I was like, oh, great, this is great. That's when I was like, it's time to lock things down. On that stuff anyway. So yeah, man. that was not cool. That was not cool at all. I was like, no. But anyway, so yeah, whenever I see like Nemophila or any other band be that vulnerable with their fans, I'm like, ooh, be careful with that. Be careful. Because it only takes one crazy one crazy fan to do something, and you may regret it, right? You never go for family. You never go for family. You leave the kids. Don't go for the kids. You know, it's like Scarface. Even in the drama scene, I know I used to be involved in that stuff very heavily. Not too proud of some things, but you don't go after kids. But apparently not everyone subscribes to that rule.
Likable. They are funny, they're fun, they're smart, they're playful, and they obviously care deeply about what they're doing. So I think all of these factors play a role in the popularity of these bands, but it is still a little bit of a mystery to me why the fan bases are so male dominated. I think it just might come down to the issue of rock and metal's traditional audience.
It's mostly dudes. It's mostly dudes. I mean, someone brings their girlfriend. There might be some girls there, but it's mostly dudes.
Things are changing. Historically, rock and metal have had an undeniably larger male audience, which there are a lot of reasons for that I can...
I like how she said there's a lot of reasons for, and then you have audience, which, I mean, they look great. They look great. They sound great. And there's nothing wrong with that.
To in another video, but I think the present fan base may have something to do with that, even though, as I mentioned earlier, recent...
Go back. Okay.
Fan base may have something to do with that, even though, as I mentioned earlier, recent studies have shown that females do, in actuality, like rock music as much as males. They may just be a little less vocal about it. It's hard to deny, however, that it's...
I don't know how true that is. They might like it if they hear it, but I don't think they follow it.
Seems like most rock bands, whether they are female or male, all appear to have an overwhelmingly male fan base, at least on paper. It could be true that more male fans just actively seek out and discuss these bands or actually go to the shows, which would create a skewed perception of the overall audience. Although I have to say that I have never personally been to one rock or metal show ever that didn't seem to have more male fans than female fans there, even though I know plenty of females who love to rock out. I do think, however, that as Japanese female rock bands continue to gain international recognition, that their female fan base is likely going to continue to grow. So these statistics may very well change.
It could. I mean, it could grow a little bit, but it's not going to be significant at all. It might be like, barely noticeable.
And I have to reiterate that I truly believe that music transcends gender, and that any stereotype that we may have about rock fans in general is likely an oversimplification, and of course a generalization that is not going to apply to everyone. The fact is that these bands are incredible, and that is the biggest reason behind their success and the dedication of their fan base. But as I said earlier, I'd really like to hear...
I thought this was pretty good. She went in pretty detail as far as reasons why. She even brought up the people probably like him also because they're attractive, and she didn't have a problem with that. There's bands that do that quite a bit, male and female, to cater to their particular audience. It's why you're not going to get ugly dudes in a boy band. It's not like you're not going to get ugly chicks in as pop stars, you're not doing that. Okay. Oh, there's exceptions to the rule. Like, what's her name? Lizzo? Okay. Well, the fact that a stage could take her is amazing. Is a testament of engineering, okay? But that's an exception. And a very large one at that. All right. Yeah, so I thought this was pretty cool, man. You guys let me know, what you thought about it. I liked your discussions there in the chat.